So on the next page, problem number 12, it says, in the polynomial p of x defined above, which is, they give us this right here, k is constant. A constant is just a number, okay? So so the question here is, if p of x is divided by x, the question is, what is the value of k? So they're asking us for the value of k. And all of these values right here are representing the k. So what we need to do for something like this is, first of all, number one, simplify the polynomial given. And once you simplify it, then go ahead and check to see if k is negative 3, k is negative 2, k is 0, k is 3, and find out which of these gives you a polynomial that is divisible by x. Okay, when something is divisible by something else, that means that the answer is just a whole number. You don't have fractions, okay? So you don't have remainders. So let me simplify first the polynomial. P of x equals, let me simplify, let's distribute. 3 times x squared is 3x squared. Second, 3 times 10x, 30x. 3 times 5, 15. Next is negative 5 times x. Negative 5x is right. And negative 5 times negative k plus 5k. And now let me simplify. Can I simplify anything here?
Yes.
The x's, that's right. So if you combine the x's, 30x and negative 5x, what would that give you? 25? Okay, so p of x, let me just simplify this. 3x squared plus 25x plus 15 plus 5k. And this is the polynomial that I'm going to be using to substitute the k. So now, in this problem number 12, when we substitute the a, which is negative 3, okay, so I'm going to substitute the a. K is supposed to be negative 3. So when I substitute that, p of x equals 3x squared plus 25x plus 15. And now instead of the k, I'm going to put negative 3. What is 5 times negative 3? Negative 15. So if that is negative 15, can I simplify that negative 15 with something on the polynomial?
Yeah.
The 15. So the positive 15 and the negative 15 would cancel each other. So my polynomial, my simplified polynomial would be 3x squared plus 25x. Is that polynomial divisible by x? Yes, because when you divide it by x, you'll have something like 3x squared over x, and then plus 25x over x. Can you simplify something on the first term?
Yes.
The x's, right? So x squared is the same thing as saying x times x. So one of the x's can cancel here. And on the second term, one of the x's would cancel. So my answer would be 3x plus 25. So was it divisible by x? Yes. So therefore, that was the answer. So this gives you a polynomial that is divisible by x. Okay, so that was number 12. Number 13. In problem number 13, they're saying in the xy plane, if the parabola with the equation y equals a squared plus bx plus c, where
If the A wouldn't work, we have to go substitute the X.
the other ones, that's right. And that's a good question. Okay, Alondra's question is, if A doesn't work, then do I have to go over B, C, and D to see which of those would work? And the answer is yes. So what I can recommend is, if A doesn't work, my suggestion is go to D. Because most of the times, the test developers, if they know you're going to try the answers, to plug them in the answers into the problem, they usually put the answer at the very bottom, the last one. Okay, so that's kind of like a trick that they have. So, you know, if it doesn't work D, then go to B and then go down. Because, you know, most of the cases, that's going to happen. But they're going to have some problems in which the answers would be A or B or C. So C, very rare you have C as the answer. But, if A doesn't go, then go to D so you don't waste time. And then from D doesn't work, then go to B and then continue. Okay, just, some little tricks that I can give you, tips, I guess. Okay, so going over to number 13. It says A, B, and C are constants. What is a constant? It's a number. It's a whole number, right? It's a constant. It's a number. It's a number. So passes through the point -1, 1. Which of the following must be true? Well, if they give me the point -1, 1, that means that the x, it's -1, and y, it's 1. So I can go into the equation and substitute the x for -1 and the y's for 1. So let me just copy the problem first. Y equals ax squared plus bx and then plus c. Instead of the y is 1, a. Instead of the x is -1, put it in parentheses because that quantity is squared. And then x is -1 and then plus c. And then just simplify. So what can we simplify here? Then -1 squared. What is -1 times -1? It's 1. So it's 1a, right? How about the second term? B times -1. Negative b or -1b? Well, isn't it 1a the same thing as just a? Right? Okay. So, is that one of the answer choices? A minus b plus c equals 1.
Yes.
Yes, that is D. They just switched it around, which is the same thing. So that was number 13. Next page. On the next page, they're just telling you the directions on how you're supposed to plug in the answers for the gridables. Something that you need to pay attention to is that number 3. No question has a negative answer. So some of the students were telling me that the answer was negative something. Be careful. If you have a negative, go back and double check the problem because there's no question that you're going to have a negative answer. Okay? And then it tells you here that, like 3.5, you can make it a 3.5 or 7 halves. But, be careful with this because 3 and then 1 divided by 2, if you entered it like that, that is 31/2, which is not the same thing as 3.5. So be very careful. Okay, sometimes mixed numbers need to be changed into decimals or into improper fractions before you put it into the gradable. And the decimal answers, if you obtain a decimal answer with more digits than the grid can accommodate, it may be either rounded or truncated, which means that it might be wrong, but it must fill in the entire grid. So something like this, like the 2/3, could be 0.6666, and that would be okay, or 0.667, that would be okay. And now some of the students were telling me, something like this answer here, it says, well, you may start your answer in the column space permitting columns you don't need to use should be left blank. So if you want to put the answer in the last 3 items or the first 3 items, the first 3 columns, that's okay, as long as you don't use the one that you're not supposed to use, and you will be okay. Okay? So you don't really have to put it this way. You could put it this way, but just don't put anything on this last column. Okay? So next